Story 1. Glow in the dark stars for above my bed. $5 for 2 packs. Infinite joy. Story 2. A safe home where I do not have to tiptoe around anyone's mood. Story 3. Shoes. Real ones I picked out myself. Not hand-me-downs that never quite fit. It felt like telling little me that I deserve comfort and choice, not just whatever is left. We all deserve something from our hard work. Story 4. I finally got myself a cute little puppy. Little me always begged my parents for one, but they said no way. Now I have the fluffiest best friend to cuddle with every night, and it feels like a dream. Story 5. I bought myself a tiara for my 30th birthday. Little me would be so pleased. Story 6. Peace. I have fought tooth and nail for it, but now I have peace and calm. Story 7. Therapy. The little me needed it, and the grown-up me finally paid for it. Story 8. Museum tickets. Whenever I want, I can visit the butterfly atrium and go to the gift shop. Story 9. Oh God, the style of clothes I want. Spider-Man sheets. My apartment looks like a museum of geeky stuff and toys like action figures and collectibles, Jordans. I have all the movies little me wanted on DVD and zebra cakes on demand. That is so unhealthy, but zebra cakes are the manna of the gods. Story 10. A ukulele. My parents were right. It is sitting in a cupboard and used after spending 5 minutes on it. Story 11. I bought the Microsoft 365 system because I could never have possibly afforded to buy all those different consoles and games. I wanted them all. It is a pleasure to play them after all these years. Cars and houses are nice, but that simple video game console makes me happy. Story 12. I bought myself a Barbie pencil case. Do you want to see it? I'm not a girly girl. Sometimes I have to check down there. My Barbie pencil case is so cute and gives me so much satisfaction. Story 13. Game consoles have become expensive paperweights due to how little I use them. Story 14. I bought a watch that looks like a tiny PlayStation 1. It is not as impressive as the original model, which had an opening disc door, but it is still cool and lights up. Story 15. I was a very lonely only child, so I made sure to give my children siblings and raise them as allies rather than adversaries. Now they are all teenagers and very close as friends as well. Story 16. Going on a Disney cruise this holiday season. My stepdad and his family would constantly tell my sister and me that they were going to take us to Disney when we were growing up, only to then take all of our cousins and not us because we were not actually related to them. It was really disappointing and hurtful. I have been working on healing my inner child lately, and I am taking my daughter on a Disney cruise. Should be fun. Story 17. Mainly clothes because most of the time, I received hand-me-downs, sometimes for the wrong gender. But now, I can have whatever I want. Having enough money to have stable food is also great. I would like to get a dog or a cat. My mom always said no to having animals. Story 18. Cats. We never had them growing up because my sister was allergic, but I always loved visiting friends and family that had cats, thinking cats were the most interesting creatures. I got my first cat when I lived with my ex-fiancée, and that cat just turned 10 earlier this week. I'm now on my 4th cat after losing one last fall to liver failure. So I have 3 of these furry little troublemakers in my house, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm the crazy cat lady, and I'm pretty proud of that. I often joke that I'm going to end up like the crazy cat lady in The Simpsons when I'm older, shouting incoherent gibberish and throwing cats at people. Where do all these cats keep coming from? I don't know, but I'm going to keep throwing them at people. Story 19. This is not a joke. When I was about 8, my mom had a Mary Kay representative who would come to the house and sell her products. This woman wore a diamond tennis bracelet, and I fell in love with it so hard. You have no idea how much I loved her sparkly diamond bracelet. It took me 35 years, but I just bought myself my first diamond tennis bracelet, and I am smitten. Story 20. My cousin Lori had one of those metal dollhouses with the cool plastic furniture that was popular in the late 1960s. That one thing made me so jealous. I put it on every Christmas wish list, which was always ignored for more important items such as socks and underwear. Throughout my childhood, there was nothing more I wanted. I never got one. Maybe 10 years ago, I found a dollhouse in an antique store that looked just like Lori's. It was very expensive, but I had to buy it. It is outfitted with some of the original plastic furniture plus fancier collectible furniture. I have crocheted little rugs and made little polymer clay fruits for the kitchen table. I now have it proudly on display in my office, and I still smile every time I see it. Story 21. Pop, soda, diet cola, whatever you want to call it. Mother could have it but never allowed us to have it. We never go without it in the fridge. Only drink zero sugar varieties. Sure, water is better for everyone, but I like pop. Story 22. At age 21, I bought myself an electric race car set because I always wanted to play with one. However, I only got the cheapest one because I knew I would be bored in a week. I played with it for a week and then got bored. Job done. Story 23. I got a puppy. She is the best. When I was little, we had dogs, but they were family dogs and I never took care of them. I have wanted one of my own for decades. And when I decided it was time, I waited until one felt right. Let me tell you, I was blessed to get the perfect little angel. Couldn't be more thrilled. The last 8 months, she has been almost 9 months old, and they have been some of the best times. I never knew how much I needed her in my life. Story 24. Clothes I actually want to wear. No more hand-me-downs, no more tracksuits, no more cheap shoes that are worn out. Story 25. I saw this Wrigley worm toy on television as a kid and kind of wanted it a little bit. Now, decades later, when I saw it in a 100 yen shop, I could not resist making my childhood dream a reality. Story 26. I used to always get one small vanilla pudding for dessert as a kid that I really loved, and I dreamed of one day eating as many as I wanted. After my first summer job at age 15, I bought 10 of them. Unfortunately, they were not nearly as tasty when I had the option to eat more than one. Story 27. I wasn't allowed to have or even play a Nintendo Entertainment System when I was little. A couple of friends had them. My uncle actually got us one for Christmas one year, but my dad took it back and exchanged it for something educational instead. 15 years later, I bought one on eBay that came with around 30 games for only $50. I spent so many hours playing Punch-Out. Story 28. Anergun. My parents always said it was too violent. Story 29. The diversity of answers is why I love Reddit. May today be your best day ever. Story 30. I bought a racing wheel for my Xbox console and personal computer. Cost $1,000 and I never use it, but I like knowing it is there. Story 31. Wacom's Cintiq drawing tablet. 12-year-old me would have been pumped. 23-year-old me was pumped. I am still pumped. I was torn since working means less time to draw, but the times I do use it, it is really cool. Story 32. I always wanted an American Girl design your own doll. My little niece recently got very interested in American Girl, and while I was babysitting, we designed her dream doll online for fun. Guess what showed up on her birthday? Yes, I am the coolest aunt. Story 33. We were never allowed to have magnets on our refrigerator because my mother found them tacky. Fast forward about 20 years, and now I buy one everywhere I travel or have a fun experience and display them on a large metal board. My refrigerator has a wood panel on it. Story 34. Years ago, I bought myself a one-year pass to Disneyland because young me wanted to go and could never afford to. I managed my money well and went almost every weekend. The pass easily paid for itself 10 times over. It was the best year of my life. Story 35. Heelys. Turns out my parents were right. They are a death trap. Story 36. I love this question and the answers so much. I just want to hug everyone reading these. Story 37. The power to go to Target and buy the entire Lego set, not just the small one from the checkout aisle, did not feel as satisfactory. Story 38. Prescription sunglasses were too expensive for children, so I had to squint when it was sunny outside. Story 39. My cat Samhain is named after the Feast of Samhain, the original name for Halloween, which is my favorite holiday. He helps me celebrate my favorite holiday a little every day throughout the year now. I have wanted a black Halloween-looking cat named Samhain ever since I was a kid, and now I have him. He has been an absolute blessing and is so good that I have given him the nickname Best Boy. Story 40. A safe haven. Neither school nor home was safe growing up, so I have fought hard to ensure my home is a place where I am safe and can finally relax. Story 41. A pair of Birkenstocks. I had a pair of off-brand ones that the popular girls in school made sure I knew were not real. I was 40 years old when I finally decided to buy myself a pair. Story 42. The quality or branded items of clothing, shoes, and accessories that I want will last, unlike the cheap knockoffs that do not last 5 minutes. It was all my parents could afford, so now I am grateful to be in a position where we can get better quality items. Story 43. The chance to play carnival games at amusement parks. I learned quickly why my parents said no, but I am still glad I did it. Story 44. A bookshelf full of books I actually chose myself because little me used to dream of having more than just borrowed school books and hand-me-downs. Story 45. Dyeing my hair. I always saw my mother dye hers, and I have always wanted to try. However, I understood that there are things children should not do, and I still think she did the right thing by not allowing me to do it. But when I was 16, I spontaneously made an appointment with my hairdresser to dye it blue. I kept it until it was washed out, and after a few months, I bought permanent home dye in dark purple. After a few years, I tried blue-black, which is black with a blue shimmer, but went back to purple. It has pretty much stayed that way ever since. Story 46. Breakfast cereal that is fancy. Little me had to have my own brand of Weetabix. Story 47. Lego sets, many Lego sets for me to display around my home. Story 48. Bags and bags of candy, and then I had major dental bills for a few years. Story 49. Assurance anglais, and I am absolutely in love with playing it. Story 50. A peaceful mind. Little me always craved calmness in the chaos, and now grown-up me has finally given it to her. Story 51. Peace of mind. Little me was always anxious. Big me finally gave myself the safety I craved. Story 52. Arts and craft kits because young me was not allowed to do things like that and buy single-use items. Story 53. My desk supplies look like a 7-year-old stocked them. Rainbows, holographic finishes, Lisa Frank vibes. Story 54. My house was very strict growing up, with cream walls and floors, forest green and natural wood furniture, and nothing outside of our rooms. They would even take garbage bags and collect things we left outside our rooms or if they deemed our rooms too messy. I got myself a Build-A-Bear again. I let myself pick the pretty pastel household items and tried to get all the colors my parents allowed before. Story 55. A bra that actually fitted and was not a hand-me-down from my aunts. I developed early but was never once bought a bra. Now I spend a lot of money on fancy ones. Story 56. Put my daughter in dance classes. I always wanted to take dance classes, but we could not afford it. We have only had one class so far, and it may not end up being her thing, but I want her to at least get to try it. Story 57. I had beads in my doorway. When my children were teenagers, I bought them beads as well. Story 58. 2 dogs are allowed inside the house and on my bed. Story 59. A canopy bed, pink glamorous room, Lips phone, inexpensive camera, and many other items I have been acquiring to heal my younger self. Story 60. I wanted a Power Wheel so badly when I was a kid. I obviously did not buy a Power Wheel for myself as an adult, but I was very excited to buy one for my son. Story 61. This was a while ago, but my best friend and I went to Chicago to ride the Ferris wheel at Navy Pier. On our first night, we were walking in Grant Park, listening to the symphony play a free concert in the distance. A vendor was selling glow-in-the-dark necklaces. I mentioned that I could never get those as a kid. Fast forward to us buying a bunch and running around like fools. It was one of the greatest nights. Story 62. A really tacky Lord of the Rings decorative plate that I saw advertised on the back of a magazine when I was little in the 90s. I tore that advert off and looked at it all the time, imagining I was in Middle-earth. My parents were divorcing after a failed attempt to move to another country following my dad's infidelity and starting fresh. I had no friends and was ferociously bullied. I was beginning to realize my dad didn't love me, and my mom was so depressed I had to persuade her out of bed in the mornings. My little siblings were angry and lost. I really wanted that plate because it showed Rivendell, which was my happy place. But we were so poor after the divorce, I don't think my mum could always afford to eat. I didn't want to ask for something so expensive and impractical. Our birthday and Christmas gifts tended to be something useful back then, like new clothes or shoes. About 20 years later, it occurred to me that I could look it up and buy it. I did. It's very ugly, and I love it. It was pretty cheap on eBay too. Little me feels good about it. Story 63. A gaming personal computer and various military rifles from the World Wars. Story 64. An airsoft collection. The best toy guns any young boy would ever want. Story 65. A giant stuffed Snoopy. I always wanted one, but my mom would not buy it. I saw it at a thrift store, and it is on my bed right now. Edit. I say giant, but he is really only about 18 inches tall. I love him. Story 66. Braces in my late 30s. My parents could not afford them when I was a kid. I needed them badly and was finally able to afford them. Story 67. Pokemon toys and figurines. As a child, I had to make mine out of clay. Story 68. Oh, lots of things. Little me was not allowed to put things on my bedroom wall. My office is covered in artwork and photos stuck all over the walls. Concerts. I was not allowed to go when I was a teenager, so I have been going to more and more every year. This year I will have been to 5 concerts. Story 69. More guns than I can remember having. It's great finding a 1935 Mosin in the laundry room and an A1 assault universal gun behind the couch. I've been having an original Russian Krinkov behind my chair that I forgot about, even though I built the damn thing. Story 70. A smoke-free living environment with mostly non-smoking friends. Every day, I have the pure joy of breathing with clear lungs. Being free of secondhand smoke and all the nicotine tar is an absolute gift. Story 71. I am on the hunt for 1990s and early 2000s beaded curtains. My dad did not like them when I bought them way back and refused to let me hang them. He threw them away while I was at school. As soon as I find them, I am putting them everywhere. Story 72. A Nintendo. Christmas 1990. One day over breakfast, Mom said that she had been speaking to Santa. Santa was thinking about getting us a video game console for Christmas but could not decide between a Nintendo or a Sega. So which would we prefer? I was on Team Nintendo. I was already reading Nintendo Power. All my friends had Nintendo. I was ready for a Nintendo. My brother wanted a Sega. He was putting a lot of quarters into Afterburn, which at the time was only on the Sega Master System. My brother and I started having a heated discussion about Nintendo versus Sega. The discussion soon became an argument. As it was about to become a fistfight, my mother broke us up and said, "Hey, if you are going to be like this, then video games are banned from the house." I became the only kid on my block without a Nintendo. So I picked up one of those NES classics a few years ago and finally got my Nintendo. Story 73. Barbies. I am 42. My parents ran a foster home for years when I was a kid. One of the foster children was rehomed and she took all my Barbies with her. My parents said she needed them more than I did and refused to buy me more because they were expensive. Story 74. A beautiful name. A home where I am respected, treated well, and loved. Perfumes, nail polishes, and other such things. The list is actually really long. Thank you for the reminder to show gratitude today. Story 75. Hot Wheels. I mostly buy them for my friend's 2 daughters. They like cars, so I am trying to introduce them to the hobby. I can easily spend $5 on a few cars every paycheck. Story 76. Anxiety and depression medication. Life is still challenging sometimes, but I hated my childhood because of how I felt all the time. Angry, scared, and sad almost constantly. I love my mom, but sometimes I feel like she did me a disservice by not getting me treatment, especially since she knew I was struggling. It still seems wild to me that people talk about their childhood and teenage years fondly. Sure, I have to work and pay many bills as an adult and deal with other health issues, but I would take my adult life over what my childhood was like any day. I have been on different medications throughout the years to find what works best. But regardless of what I was taking, It was always much better than taking no medication at all. Story 77. Guns and a motorcycle. I know those are two things, but I could not decide which to mention. I would add that I am not a criminal and have never shot anyone. Story 78. A Malibu Barbie from the 1970s, when I was 60 years old. I have spent the last 15 to 20 years reaching for the childhood I never had. You should see my Lego collection, stuffed animals, and fidget toys. It drives my husband nuts on occasion, but he does understand why I am the way I am. Story 79. When I was younger, I was desperately poor. Basic necessities were a stretch, so extras like Halloween costumes were a rare luxury. I often had very little to dress up with, so I skipped trick-or-treating entirely because I was too embarrassed. Now that I am an adult and very comfortable financially, I am a bit Halloween crazy. I have a pretty extensive display I put out every year, and we give away full-size chocolate bars. Story 80. Underclothes. Underwear, socks, bras. My mom never wanted me to have new ones. She thought the ones she bought me at 10 were good enough for me to wear at 14. I even had friends coming up to me and asking if I was wearing a bra 3 sizes too small on purpose, like a fashion statement. It was embarrassing. They smelled awful from being the only underclothes I wore for gym class. I would run around and sweat in gym as a high schooler and couldn't change out of them because they were the only pairs I owned. Yes, I washed them, but not often because I didn't have anything else to change into. I met my boyfriend, now husband, about a month before I turned 15. From the beginning, he bought me anything I needed. Not from a 15-year-old boy's perspective, but because he saw the wire from my bra leaving blisters under my chest, the waistbands of my underwear digging into my hips, and my stained and holy socks. To be honest, I don't know why he even liked me because I felt gross. I am turning 31 soon, and he is always encouraging me to buy for myself. It is still extremely hard after all these years together. I am currently in need of several things I cannot convince myself to get. But underclothes are always a priority because there was a time when it felt like they were not. I have little boys now too, so I want them to understand how important it is to look after small things like that. Story 81. Tickets. Plane tickets to fly and event tickets to do the things I want to do there. Also, putting together cosplay costumes, whether it is for a Renaissance fair or comic convention. I can just buy costumes and dress up for events. Story 82. Clothes. I have a mini dream closet that I spent 30 years building. I was sent to school with undersized shoes that had holes in them. My stepmother went out of her way to make sure I always looked like I was homeless while my stepbrothers had the best of everything. Story 83. Second child here. I finally have some trendy, very stylized clothes that I chose, not all secondhand because thrifting is fun. When I manage to dress up, it is kind of amazing. I am also a dancer and I bought things that expose my stomach after years of being told to hide it. Story 84. Stuffed crust pizza and sprinkle cones. My parents always said they were an unnecessary extra charge. But sometimes you just want more cheese or a little touch of whimsy. Story 85. A fast sports car. I have always loved driving fast. I waited until my children were grown, then went and bought my dream fast car. Story 86. A Nintendo e-reader and some Animal Crossing e-reader cards. Story 87. Gaming consoles, craft kits seen advertised on television, zebra cakes and fruity pebbles. Story 88. Purple and colorful hair was difficult to maintain, and I do not have it anymore, mainly because I was tired of stained towels. However, I am glad I did it. My mother told me I was too pretty for fashion colors when I was younger. The same goes for clothes. I dress much less fashionably than I did when I was young, but I am a lot more comfortable and feel more like myself. Story 89. When I was a kid, my family had a big yard sale. I brought some stuffed animals out to sell. One was the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. This was around 1990. An elderly lady talked me down from $1 to 25 cents. It was from Disney World and in great condition. I have regretted selling it ever since. Finally, around age 35, I bought one from a Disney store. It isn't quite the same. It looks a little more malicious than I remember mine being, but I love it anyway. It helped heal some childhood disappointment. Story 90. all the toy horses. Well, not all of them, just many of them, many. Story 91. Believe it or not, an easy bake oven I found on eBay. I didn't grow up deprived or anything. My mother just refused to get me one of these. Looking back as an adult, maybe it's because she thought cooking with a light bulb was a bad idea. But my first cake was perfect. Story 92. Little me just wanted the freedom to play games anytime. Now I own all the games I dreamed of but barely have the time or the mindset to enjoy them. Story 93. Swords. I would also say airsoft rifles, but now I prefer professional Nerf blasters. Story 94. Mental health. When I was a kid and had none, I was always on edge about everything, from symptoms of an early mental illness to my parents' reactions. I am learning how to live. Little me just wanted to function. Story 95. Cute stationery. I grew up in a single-parent household, so understandably my sister and I got cheap stationery. Within reason, we could get cute stationery, but only the very inexpensive kind, and it wasn't really that good. For example, all the glittery items were more expensive. Now, as an adult, whenever I need something like a notebook or a pen, I go out of my way to get the kind of expensive, cute ones just because they make me happy. Sure, I could buy a plain $1.80 notebook, but why do that when I can buy the $5 notebook that has little strawberries on it? Story 96. I got a big Hello Kitty sticker book. I could never afford the fancy Sanrio items when I was a kid. Now I have Hello Kitty everywhere and a sticker collection that would make any 10-year-old green with envy. Story 97. A stable life that does not include deceiving family and friends. Story 98. As a child, I was obsessed with dogs. Now, I finally have one. His name is Rumo, and he is awesome. Story 99. A giant full-size bag of candy from the grocery store. No sharing, no asking, no special occasion, just because I wanted it. Story 100. Roller skates. They are beautiful, mint green, and the wheels light up. Story 101. A family of my own that respects me and treats me like I am valuable to them, as if my interests are truly important to them. Story 102. Over the last few years, I bought some old mountain bikes that were very expensive when I was a kid in the 1990s. The only bike I could afford at the time was a Specialized Hard Rock, which I loved and used every day. Then I stopped cycling completely for almost 20 years until I got a Klein Attitude Race from 1999, which is a Trek Klein, about 4 or 5 years ago. I fell in love with bicycles again, especially those from the 1990s. For me, this was the golden era for bikes. Now I own a Specialized FSR Comp, a Stork Adrenaline, 2 Silo Swiss frames, a Klein Pinnacle Elite, the Attitude Race mentioned earlier, a Scapin Pro Race, an MS Racing Comp XT, a Proflex 455, and a GT LTS3. Things escalated a bit, but I do not regret anything. Story 103. I have plenty of paper, tape, and scissors at all times. I also have a mattress that does not have springs sticking out of it. Story 104. Well, it was my birthday last week, and I have always wanted a decent telescope. So, I decided to try a pair of astronomy binoculars with a mount to see if I would actually enjoy the hobby. I figured it would be easy to set up, and I would not get frustrated trying to figure out a more expensive telescope. So far, I am having a blast. I will save up and upgrade to something better in a few months. Story 105. Karate lessons. I was never allowed to take them as a teenager because it was considered not ladylike. I started at age 42 and am now a black belt. Ladylike be damned. Story 106. Doctor's appointments. I have had multiple skin conditions my entire life that have made me itchy, raw, and flaky. It has been torture. I finally got an appointment, and it is like it was never there. I have spent almost 30 years suffering because my parents told me I was dramatic. Story 107. This may sound silly, but my purchase was a printer and a package of printer paper. My dad would always get upset and threaten to break the printer whenever I printed more than 1 page. The most I ever printed was about 4 pages with the smallest legible font I could read, and it was during one of the very rare times I printed anything. Now I can print anything I want to my heart's content without fear of being yelled at or threatened. Story 108. Legos are hard to justify to your parents when you were a kid because they often say, "We got you Legos a few months ago. Now I can finally build the Grand Army of the Republic one block at a time." Unfortunately, I missed the opportunity to get Bionicles. Story 109. The biggest box of Crayola crayons, the one with the sharpener in the back. I never needed that many for school, and we usually had leftover crayons at home anyway, so my parents would not buy them. Also, a cat. Story 110. I'm really excited to be able to buy food whenever I want. I wasn't starving or anything, but it's nice to be able to buy pizza when I'm craving it. Story 111. A puppy. It's been years, but now we have a second one after my first passed away. Just coming home from work and having a dog that is absolutely thrilled to see you makes me so happy. I love dogs. Story 112. The luxury of just traveling wherever I want. We never left the state when I was growing up, and the only trip was to the beach. Other than that, every summer and holiday it was the same town I grew up in. Story 113. Soft Body Slumber Party Barbie from 1994. I am surprised how much I adore having one, even in my 30s. Story 114. We were on a family vacation, but one of my cousins was not there because he was abroad. I thought of him and remembered how, as kids, he had complete sets of Power Ranger toys, Ranger figures, weapons, and many Zords. I was jealous because I did not have those as a child. Because of that, I searched for some Power Ranger action figures and bought a small Zack Taylor figure. Story 115. A dressing table. I never had one growing up. I moved a lot and finally bought my flat more than 20 years ago. The first thing I bought was my dressing table and I still have it. It was only a cheap item, but I still have the receipt. Story 116. I have many Lego sets and Transformers now. I have a Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5. As a kid, that stuff was secondhand and probably pawned at some point. I have more than one pair of shoes. Story 117. Base set holographic Charizard. I could never really afford those booster packs back in 1999. I always had to rely on freebies and trading. I finally bought one when I got my first internship paycheck and have kept it since. Story 118. Air conditioning was not allowed in the home growing up. Strictly box fans in the window were used. Summers were absolute torture. Story 119. Lots of retro games. I don't pay full price, though. I go video game hunting every weekend at garage sales and thrift stores. My parents spoiled me as a child, but they were never really on board with video games. I always had to buy those with my allowance or birthday money I had saved. Story 120. Frankly, the need that I felt is an achievement. It is something I was hoping to receive when I was young. What is the need that you brought to yourself and a younger brother? What do you do? Story 121. A chonker red panda. If you know, I'm almost 30, but I still love stuffed animals. I told my best friend how much my inner child wanted that plush specifically, but I couldn't justify the $80. He got it for me for my birthday. It was one of my all-time favorite things. Story 122. Barbie of Swan Lake doll, 2003. Barbie of Swan Lake is one of my favorite Barbie movies from childhood. I finally got the doll for it. It was expensive. Story 123. Snacks and meals inside theme parks. Growing up, my family never ate in the parks because it was too expensive. Every once in a while, we got to end the day with an ice cream or shared funnel cake. But for the most part, we were limited to the McDonald's 5 minutes outside the gate at lunchtime. It was similar for zoos, aquariums, and other attractions. Basically, if you had to pay to get in, we weren't paying extra for the food. I also get myself a treat now. It's what young me would have wanted. Story 124. Intellivision 2 with the computer module. I wanted it so much every time I received a game or a new catalog in the mail. It made my Intellivision 1 look old and outdated. I finally got it a couple of years ago. I was not disappointed, even though it plays the same games and only added a basic interpreter. Story 125. Mega gaming rig, large screens, excellent speakers, and my own gym. Story 126. A Monster High Claudine Wolf doll. My mom refused to buy me the last Series 1 Claudine Wolf doll at Toys R Us. I had the original Draculaura and Frankenstein, and I wanted to complete the best friend trio. I bought a original reproduction of that doll last year, and I have no regrets. Story 127. I painted my bedroom bubblegum pink and made the wall behind my bed magenta. I could finally pick my own paint colors. Story 128. A mini watercolor painting set with brushes and a watercolor notebook with a black felt pen. I am not good at art, but I am at least enjoying myself. Story 129. 3-foot-tall Pioneer stereo speakers. They needed repair, including the cabinets and refoaming. I fixed them and they are wonderful. A piece of my life is now complete. Story 130. Scythe, the Halloween ones were always so expensive. It was never something that really fit decor, yet it made me happy. Story 131. A bar of Nestle Crunch that I did not have to share with anyone else in my family. Story 132. Soda pop. My parents bought 1 2-liter a week. It was gone by Tuesday night, probably for the best since it went flat within a couple of days of opening the bottle. I got my first paycheck, deposited most of it, and kept $10 for walking around money. My first purchase was a 12-pack of Mountain Dew. It was the 1990s, and a 12-pack cost $2.49. Story 133. I went to Norway for 3 weeks by myself. Just me and my beery bear. Little me always wanted to travel, but my Air Force father was tired of traveling. Story 134. Violin and violin lessons. Also a sewing machine and sewing lessons. Story 135. He-Man and Battle Cat. They still make me smile every time I see them together. Story 136. As an adult, I have taken figure skating, gymnastics, and ballet classes that I could not take as a child. Unfortunately, the adult figure skating and gymnastics programs were discontinued. Story 137. Costume jewelry because the real gems are out of my financial reach. Story 138. A cat. Always wanted one, but my mother was allergic. Now I have 2. Story 139. Chocolate milk. My stepdad used to chug it in the car on the drive home. Story 140. All pink everything. A dog of my own. Cartilage piercing. Clothes without tags or with easy-to-remove tags. Nice markers, pens, and pencils. Story 141. I have had dogs since I got my own place. I never could as a kid. I love them and I am better for having them. Story 142. A Fisher-Price castle. I found one in a thrift and antique shop a couple of years ago. My little friend down the street had one, and I was so jealous because I only had the house, the school, the barn, the garage, and the airplane. Story 143. An indoor pet cat of my very own. I actually went a little overboard, so now I have 5 indoor cats of my very own. They heal a little piece of my inner child every single day. Story 144. I built model cars as a child. I had quite a few of them, but there were many more I wanted, and the money was not available. Starting in my 20s, I began seeking out and buying the ones I always dreamed about in the 1980s and 1990s. The downside is that they cost $5 or $6 back then and are over $30 each now. Story 145. Real artwork, not a print. It was my retirement gift to myself. I was an art teacher. I had my own things but wanted something personally bought and paid for. Story 146. Not me, my mum. As the mid-1980s, Care Bears are all the rage. We're strapped for cash. So mum gets 7-year-old me a Care Bear knitted by a colleague. I love it. I get taken with my best friend and her family to meet a real-life Care Bear. My friend has a real Care Bear. All the kids are hugging the Care Bear and interacting with it. It is taking the Care Bears off the kids, hugging them, and posing for photos. I eagerly offer my not Care Bear and get snubbed. Turns its back on me. I try again. It shakes its head and turns away. I don't remember being upset, more angry at the injustice. I also can't remember if any adults noticed. Fast forward 20 years. I'm expecting my first baby. Mum and I are out shopping for baby items, and to my delight, Care Bears are back. I may have squealed. I casually mentioned to Mum the time I was snubbed by a real-life Care Bear, and Mum had no idea. She teared up and apologized to me. I told her not to be daft. I loved my bear. But Mum was really upset because it was a big thing back then that we were very poor, and she tried her hardest to get us what we wanted. A few months later, as I'm cradling my newborn on Christmas Day, my mum gives me a present for the days-old baby, and I unwrap a Sunshine Care Bear. A real one, not a fake. Story 147. An 80s BMX bike with a fancy chrome frame, colorful plastic mag wheels, and colored tires. Back then, all my bikes were made from parts of bikes people threw out. I wore them out but could never get a new one. Now I have 7 of the fancy ones. Story 148. My husband wanted light-up shoes, so I bought them for him. Story 149. Travel. Parents could not or would not. But I can. Where to next? Story 150. Skirts and overall girl clothing. Always wanted to wear skirts and platform shoes growing up. Story 151. Slowly, I am buying myself true comfort, such as a mattress topper, nice sheets for my bed, rugs for my bathroom, and a coffee maker I actually like. These small things, which most people do not really think about, make my life feel luxurious because I never had them before. Story 152. Tennis skirts and clothes that I actually feel happy in. Story 153. Cotton candy. My mother was entirely opposed to processed sugar, and my young self was obsessed with it. When I was about 8, I visited the state fair and watched a young woman purchase a gigantic, fluffy pink cloud of cotton candy. She bit into it once or twice and decided she didn't like it. Too sweet, she complained. She tried to give it to a little boy, maybe 5, who was too shy to take it from her. So she dropped the whole airy pink confection in the trash can beside me. Good heavens. I was 24 before I got some, and I have loved it ever since. Story 154. My children had the glow-in-the-dark stars. They put one on our ceiling. I painted our former bedroom and kept the star in memory of my late daughter and my daughter in Ohio. Story 155. Less of a couldn't and more of a could but never got the chance. But I always wanted a space hopper ball, those giant balls with a handle that you sit on and bounce. A few years ago, I saw an adult-sized one on Amazon, and now I have one in bounce for hours. Story 156. I wanted a motorcycle since I was 9 years old, but life got in the way. At the age of 42, I finally got a motorcycle. Story 157. A board game collection. Growing up, I loved board games and was amazed when visiting friends whose families enjoyed gaming and had gaming nights. Now I have a decent collection, and I love playing with my nieces and nephews, letting them experience the fun I always wanted. Story 158. Interesting walls, hand-picked furnishings that are not matchy-matchy, and many different plants. Story 159. I was raised extremely poor. We weren't poor. It is just that my father only spent money on his garbage collection because he was a hoarder. So, I have bought many of the things I wanted growing up. Nerf guns, for example. If it is cool, I can buy it for myself. Story 160. Motorcycle. I rode Harley-Davidson motorcycles for several years and loved it. My parents would not get me a dirt bike for riding on the farm, so when I was older and could afford it, I bought a Harley-Davidson. Story 161. Mario video game. I used to watch my friend play it. They would not let me use the video game controller. All I did was watch them play. Story 162. A diamond tennis bracelet. My daughter's first ex-husband stole my valuable jewelry to buy drugs, and I always wanted one, so I got it. I wear it all the time because nobody is stealing anything else from me. Story 163. Tesla. I wanted one for 9 years. It is the best thing I have ever purchased, period. It is that good. Story 164. I am old enough to buy all the bubbles I want. I have 2 large containers and a small one to carry in my purse. Story 165. The original 1986 Transformers movie. It was the summer between my 6th and 7th grade. My friend invited me to go along with him and his family to see it. My dad did not believe it was him, so he said no. Later, it was confirmed it was my friend. In the early 2010s, going through a divorce and all the stress with it, I decided to buy it so I could finally watch it. I do not regret buying it one bit. Story 166. A cat. My mother was allergic to them. As soon as I could, I got a kitten. My mother warned me that if I got a cat, she would never come over. I just loved kittens. Story 167. A Nintendo 64 that could play Majora's Mask. For those who are not familiar, to play Majora's Mask, you had to buy a Nintendo 64 expansion pack. The expansion pack was essentially additional RAM, doubling the memory from 4 megabytes to 8 megabytes. As a child, I received Majora's Mask as a gift but discovered I could not play it. I had to borrow my friend's expansion pack for about 2 weeks and grind through the game one summer. I always wanted my own expansion pack to replay the game whenever I wanted, but I never got one. Story 168. Solar System Science Kit. I have a few others, but the solar system is my favorite and the one I wanted most because it was one of my special interests growing up. Story 169. A street-legal monster truck. I was obsessed with them. Oh, and funny cars, though I now find them hideous. I've wanted to race cars since I was a 4-year-old little girl. I'm 51 now. We got a ridiculous deal on it by accident. She's all paid off now, too. She's a beautiful beast, built by Southern Comfort Automotive Performance. 2014 GMC Sierra 1500 Apex Southern Comfort Edition. Custom white diamond color paint. I hated light-colored vehicles until I saw this one. 6-inch lift with 35-inch tires. The original wheels were flaking and still under warranty, so now she has Black Widow wheels instead. They quit using the original wheels. Wonder why? It was 2 years old and had 24,000 miles on it. The salesman gave us the wrong price, but by the time he realized, the paperwork was already underway, so he had to stick with it. $78,000 brand new. We paid $38,000 and could have driven to a different car lot and sold it for $20,000 more than we paid. Obviously, we kept it. We were never getting another deal like that again. It's definitely come in handy since moving to the middle of nowhere, Montana. Need those big tires and 4-wheel drive to get up our driveway sometimes. Story 170. Markers for coloring. We were only allowed crayons as children. Adult coloring is very relaxing. I definitely recommend it. Story 171. Multiple ear piercings and black nail polish. My mother did not allow me. Story 172. Literally anything that was not a life essential. My parents never let me have my own money during my childhood. I was not deprived, and objectively speaking, I did have a relatively privileged upbringing, but I literally could not buy anything by myself. A $1 toy might as well have cost $1 million if my parents were not willing to buy it for me. Story 173. My parents refused to let me get the waffle cone to try to teach me fiscal responsibility, but all it taught me is that the waffle cone is the best $1.50 upcharge you could ever spend, and I get it every time now. Story 174. Built a high-end gaming personal computer for use on a big screen television. Apart from that, I have one more goal of having a pet dog or dogs. One day, when I have my own space, I will make that happen. Story 175. My own computer. I can customize it however I want, install any programs and games I want, and nobody can tell me otherwise. Story 176. Lego. I got the Lego flowers and I am hooked. I can't stop getting more. It brings me joy. Story 177. I don't know, honestly. I buy my own games, but I hardly play games anymore. I have a computer and used to consider myself an avid gamer, but nowadays I don't do much of anything. I don't think I'll ever have enough time, money, resources, or talent because others seem to improve at a faster pace than I do. I do have a comfortable bed now. Story 178. The entire card collection of the 1992 Marvel Comics trading card set. Story 179. A games console just for me. No siblings hogging it all day. Story 180. World Wrestling Entertainment Replica Championship belts. My husband and I have a collection of 8 or 9. They are displayed above our kitchen cabinets. Story 181. A pair of DC skate shoes. Little me always got Walmart or Payless skate shoes. When Big Me saw a pair, I knew I had to buy them. Story 182. a Phantom of the Paradise helmet. 50-year fan. I even went to Hollywood costume stores as a kid on a trip in the 1970s, and they said, "You mean opera, kid? There's no Phantom of the Paradise." I didn't know the movie was only popular in my city and Paris. Story 183. It's not something to get. It's something I do, but I cut the crust off when I make a sandwich. Story 184. Oh my God, insurance. Having dental and vision coverage is honestly just a paying job to buy myself things when I feel stuck. Story 185. Fortress Maximus. It was like having the perfect third child. Story 186. A piano. As a child, I wanted to play so badly, but we couldn't afford one. Now I practice every day. Story 187. An MP5. 9-year-old me is very proud. Current me is in debt. Totally worth it. Story 188. Cats, vanity, and hair products. No more volume 05 for this girl. Story 189. All the craft supplies and craft kits were sold in the front at Barnes and Noble or Borders. I just realized I wish I had those fancy princess coloring books. Now I have to find them. The research is better than the having sometimes. Story 190. As a Boy Scout, I always wanted a buck 119 or 120 hunting knife, like the scout leader's son had. Instead, I got a gas station slab of steel with "Made in China" stamped on it back in the 1980s. It could never be sharpened to any sort of working edge. When I grew up and saw one in a store, I bought it. I never went camping with it, but I have it now. Story 191. All of the Nintendo GameCube games my mother could not afford to buy me. Story 192. The confidence to truly believe in myself, something my younger self always struggled with. Story 193. At 35, I bought the Barbie dream house I was considered too old for at 10. Story 194. Every new video game system that is released, I often buy two and keep one new in the box displayed in the game room. Story 195. Finally finished a boy band sticker set I failed to complete in 1995. Found a whole box on eBay of stickers and it is now complete. I have plenty of swaps. Story 196. Little me was pretty content with life, but there was expensive stuff he never asked for. Now that I am a grown-up, I treat myself every now and then. Story 197. 125-gallon aquarium. Child me would be excited to come home to that every day. Story 198. I have not done it yet, but when I finally finish the process of buying a house, I am getting Lego. Just a few small models, but I will actually be able to sit and build them and then display them without fear of them being smashed or ruined. Story 199. Glass prisms on my windowsill, so when the sun comes up, they throw spectrums all around my bed. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.